Okay. All right. Well, that's one amazing introduction, I would say. And time check is 6:15 here, Beijing time here in Chongqing, China as well, where we are. And the temperature outside was 37 today. I'm here with the lovely Vivian. And of course, you know AJ from PTE. Vivian, how are we standing the weather?
It's extremely hot out here, actually. I'm wearing shirt and you're actually wearing long sleeve. Like how did you wear that?
The air conditioning.
Okay, air conditioning basically save everybody's life here right now.
So if we could get a big hello from our guests here, let us know if our sound quality is okay and our picture quality is okay. I know a couple of known names immediately have come in here. Hammer88, thanks for coming back. Kevin, always a pleasure to have you. Ken, Penguin's on here as well. Inky Pinky, I see you back again. Absolutely fantastic. And yes, you're right, Ken. It's 5:15 St. Louis time, and we really, really appreciate all you tuning in from America. We will eventually get that time right for us. Sound and visual is great. Kevin, thank you. Kevin, if you're ever in Chongqing, you want to help us with the backstage, you're more than welcome to do that. So you guys know what the discussion here today is. It is China's economy, and we have a lot to cover today. PTE, AJ, as if you guys don't know, AJ, maybe just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and we'll do a little quick round, and then we're going to get right into it because I got lots of stuff to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Hey guys, how are you doing? Thanks for inviting me today. It's a lovely day here in UK. I'm British, by the way, and so I mainly talk about geopolitics issues, talk about Britain, talk about United States, and just generally talk about China as well. I've been to China, stayed there for about a year, mainly down in Chongqing. So this is why I'm here to kind of help out. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking about the Chinese economy. Hopefully my input will be interesting.
Well, thank you for that, AJ. And I just want to say welcome to everybody watching with WeChat. This is the first time that we've actually simultaneously been on WeChat, Facebook, Twitter, and we're also on a second channel of AJ's. AJ, just for the audience, so you could tell us about your second channel, and then we're going to move on to Vivian.
Yeah, my second channel, I started the channel called Wolf Warrior. I started this about a year ago, and it was mainly discussing about China really, and then suddenly YouTube put a big shadow ban on me, and I was getting 0 subscribers on that channel. So that's why I decided to open a second channel, and my second channel has actually grown very fast. It's doubled the subscriber count, and but the first channel has still got a very good number of Chinese citizens in there. Got a very, very good number, so they're still there. They haven't unsubscribed. My subscriber count has not changed. So I've got a very, very good loyal following there, so I've added that channel as well.
Well, that's good. And what we'll do is we'll talk about the links and all that at the end of the program today. And if you're watching this on replay, don't worry. We will put those links for you guys to watch in the description below. But hey, thank you very much for everybody joining in tonight. As you can see behind us, that's our newsroom here. And if you want to know everything that's going on in Chongqing here, you just got to tune into our YouTube channel or our website called iChongqing.info. And I'm going to pass it over to Vivian now because all day she's been coming around my desk saying, Alex, I have so much to say on this program. We're going to actually let her kind of host this part here because she's got a lot to talk about the Chinese economy. Take it away, Vivian.
Okay, so hi everyone, and I'm so grateful that Alex invited me again for this live stream discussion. I'm more than excited to join AJ and Alex. So as a reporter actually working in the editorial team here within iChongqing, we actually got a lot of stories like happening from time to time. And we've actually interviewed so many interviewees, and we have so many good stories about economic and also like political aspects to cover. So I'm sure that we can bring some of interesting insights to you guys and talking about China's economy. And that's kind of like a really broad topic, but we will break it down into both macro and micro aspects to discuss about. So I'm gonna take it from here.
You're gonna take it? All right.
Okay.
Vivian's gonna actually really dig deep into this. And you might want to tell our viewers a little bit more about your position here in one of the largest cities in the world, which is Chongqing. If you're just viewing us, there is over 13 million people, and it is quite a mega city. It breaks records in many areas, including especially transportation, but that's for another topic. But Vivian, if you want to know about the local economy here, well, yes, tell us all about it.
Yes. So, so for our group, we call our group as political as well as the economic news group. So we cover a lot of big things like political events, not only about the two sessions, like national two sessions. We also involve we also cover significant events here happening in Chongqing, including the WCA-FIT, which was just passed, and
maybe the viewers would need to know what the WCI-FIT is if they haven't tuned into us. I mean, there's a lot of events going on here, and sometimes I'm going to stop Vivian is because I have to explain, because we're on the assumption, because we live in this city, it's so exciting, it's so vibrant, so much is happening, and we're under the assumption that everybody knows what's going on here. But sometimes we miss a few important little details. And when I hear key names like the WCI, FIT, and when I hear the Smart China Expo, I'm thinking, yeah, it's coming, it's on its way. And then I said, wait a minute, we got to tell the audience about it. So tell them
definitely.
What that event is.
So what's WCA-FIT stands for is the Western China International Fair for Investment and Trade, which was actually held from July 21st to July 24th. And there were actually a lot of interesting forums going on, and we interviewed a lot of representatives from the Fortune 500 companies. We also got chances to interview some of the guest speakers for some of the really big forums. So feel free to actually take a look with iChongqing's website. We have all those exclusive stories and news reporting out there for you to take a look and just to get an idea about what this plan for is like. And also we are talking about the Smart China Expo, as Alex talking about, which will be happening in the end of August next month. And I'm going to actually talk about that later in my speech. So I won't spoil everything in the introduction. So.
Well, I've got a list here with me today of some headlines that were coming through. This was just brought to my desk a while ago, and I'm just going to blast through these quickly. China's GDP rises 2.5% year on year. That's from mid-month. Good news for the Chinese economy. Now, it's not always good news. We were actually handed a document just before we came live on the air here, discussing about Shanghai. Do you want to share that with our viewers? That was numbers that was shared with us on our WeChat. Remember talking about maybe some of the impacts of what the pandemic had on Shanghai?
So right now, Shanghai basically has I think as everybody knows that there was a severe situation before that from the pandemic in Shanghai, and a lot of people actually were saying that they have been suffering from pandemic, but at the same time there are always good sides we can look into, for the Shanghai's economy and also for the Beijing's economy in general. So how do you think about this, Alex? Well,
I think when reading the document, it was kind of you have to understand what it went through. I mean, it went through, as China tries to continue its success with the zero COVID policy, there are challenges. Nothing is perfect. Now, things do get impacted. Economies get impacted. And if you're Shanghai, you must remember that the port in Shanghai is as large as, I believe, the 8th largest economy in the world. That's just the port. So impacts do happen. And there was a comparison about the impact of maybe Beijing overtaking it. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
So maybe explain that a little bit to our viewers, the importance of that.
Yes, there was recently a news report saying that Beijing's economy actually surpassed the Shanghai's economy, as Shanghai has suffered this pandemic a few months ago. But I would like to say that because I think there are always double-edged the double sword. Like how was this,
double-edged sword.
Yes, double-edged sword. Like it always has like positive effects and negative effects. So I was thinking that Shanghai always, like has been a prominent city in China, and everybody knows that Shanghai is, it's like a center of China, and facing this kind of thing, I think a lot of like foreign readership actually has some negative impacts on Shanghai's economy. But it's really hard to say, like managing such a really big city and under all those efforts is not such an easy thing to do. So how do you think about that from your perspective as a foreigner? I would like to.
I mean, completely understandable. Let's look into the last 3 years here. We've had many countries around the world say to China, hey, wait a minute, China, you need to improve this, you need to improve that, especially with the COVID policy. But we have over 180 countries that had a failed COVID policy. So I'm curious, should we be taking advice on that here locally from anyone in regards to that? And that's really the aspect. You talk about the economy. Of course, the economy is going to be impacted. 2 months, of course, it's going to be impacted. But those could be orders. Let's say people had orders in queue, or orders that are doubled, or orders that are tripled. What might be a bad quarter now might be a record-breaking quarter the next quarter. And that's how much the impact, and that's how world markets work, right? It's not like supply and demand immediately stopped even during COVID. In fact, certain sectors, certain markets exploded. I mean, just look at, for example, if trying to buy a webcam during the COVID in the United States and in Canada, there was back orders 6 to 8 months. Now, once again, you're in that business, you accelerate. You're in the Google business or the online business and stuff like that, your business accelerated. Now we're seeing a slowdown in those and a pickup in maybe transportation, pickup in travel and tourism. So I think eventually whatever Shanghai lost, or let's say missed, will be picked up, because we are talking about the warehouse to the world here, which is China.
Yes, and a lot of like international consumption areas and scenarios are opening up, and Shanghai still will be the Shanghai everybody think in their mind.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep, and it's gonna be continue with its glorious, glorious advancement. So I would like to actually hear from AJ's viewpoint on like Shanghai's recovering economy, and also some of your insights probably would like to share with our audience.
Sure. I've just sent you a link. I don't know if you can kind of share it with our viewers, actually. So I wanted to basically talk about this. So despite the lockdowns in Shanghai, and despite all of these issues, China's land-sea corridor transports 30% more goods in H1 2022, which means the first half of the year, China has exported more goods, 30% more goods to the rest of the world, which means even though Shanghai ports was down, other ports had to step up. So it's talking about land-sea corridor. So we're talking about seaports, we're talking about land ports. So goods were still being sent to the rest of the world, and there is still a huge demand for Chinese goods, especially in the West, in the UK. As you know, there's not much of a manufacturing in the West at the moment. The inflation is super high. So the cost of doing any business in the West, whether it's in UK or Europe, or whether it's in the United States, is still super high. So right now, I'll give you UK as an example. So the inflation has reached 9.6% in UK, which means it is 9.6% more expensive than it was, let's say 6 months ago or a year ago. And what alternatives do they have? The alternative is to import Chinese goods. And if you look at the inflation in China has reached around 2.5% last month, I believe. And it's still far lower than what it is in UK, which means goods transported from China will be much cheaper. So if you're a business in UK, you will more likely to buy goods from China, and even if you have to wait longer, it's still cheaper and worth it. So even though the Shanghai ports were closed, a lot of these exports were still rising. The export market was not really affected as much. I mean, the local businesses were affected, the people were affected, but not the actual export market. As you know, Shanghai is now open again. Things are now looking up. I believe the last month's GDP growth is pretty high in terms of China. China is now on a recovery path. It's still in terms of inflation, is still a major manufacturer in the world, is still the factory of the world, and is still sending cheap goods to the rest of the
Mhm.
world. When I say cheap goods, I don't mean cheap quality goods, but cheap value for money goods. So it's much cheaper to buy from China than to manufacture it in your own country, for example, in the West. So
Mhm.
a lot of these items that were waiting, say if there was if there was a Shanghai business that was closed during lockdown, you know, Western companies cannot move to another company with this short notice.
Mm.
Sometimes it takes years. If you want to move countries, if you want to move companies or suppliers, it takes years. You have to go through a process. So most likely these companies in the West were waiting until everything's opened up again, and now they are finally getting their goods delivered. So in terms of China, the West likes to paint China as like, oh, there's a lot of issues in China. They love these stories. I've been seeing it for over 20 years. China China is going to crash. China is going to fall. There's people like Gordon Chan, for example, who made a living making books that China's going to fall, China's going to crash. China is not going to crash.
Mhm.
It's and people in the West love to make these stories up, saying, "Oh,
Mhm.
this is the end of China. China's economy is, it's going to bust." Well, it's not. I mean, you just have to look at the figures. Yeah, the figures in Shanghai were not good last few months during the lockdown, but now it's the point of recovery. And the advantage that China has is it doesn't have much of an inflation, which means it can recover very fast. Plus, there'll be huge amounts of orders coming from the West, and it doesn't have the problems that the West is having with inflation, with cost of living crisis, for example. So people that over exaggerate China's economic issues are just an over exaggeration, to be honest. And you will see over the next few months how China recovers much faster than the rest of the world.
Mhm.
So what I'm going to do, AJ, I'm going to keep you on the screen here, and I'm going to try to increase our streaming rate here. So I'll be
Yeah.
back in a moment. You can just carry on that point, and I'm
Sure.
just going to make sure that our streaming rate's good. You two carry on in your dialogue, and I'll be back in just a couple of seconds. Carry on, AJ.
Okay, thanks. So going back to my first article, as you can see, 30% more goods were being delivered in H1 2022. And 30% of goods being delivered to the rest of the world is a huge number, because if you think about it, during the pandemic, when the West economy had pretty much shut down, all the businesses were shut down, they were buying lots of goods from China. They were importing a lot of goods from China. So China's exports had risen 50, 60, even 70% last few years. And now you have another extra 30% on top of that. So you just have to look at the figures. And I think this year alone, China's electric cars, EV cars, are being transported to a lot more countries. And there's a huge renewable industry in China, which is being transported to the rest of the world as well. Europe is moving very fast to renewable energies, and most of the stuff they are getting it from China.
Mhm.
So there is a huge business demand for China and the economy. And even though the lockdown was it did cause issues. I'm not going to say it didn't. Of course it did. Every lockdown causes issues in economy, but it's not as bad as people think. It's not as now China is out of the recovery. I'm sure it will have a V-shaped recovery. When you look at economics, whenever your economy goes down because of a certain issue, whether it's COVID or say wars, for example, the, after all of that is over, the economy recovers very fast, and that's what's happening to China, and that's what they call this a V-shaped recovery, and China did that during
Mhm.
the COVID as well.
I like what AJ said about some of his points about like how manufacturing industry has been boosted up, and also some of like China's way of doing things and dealing with problems. Actually, for the China's economy, from my perspective, it's like really giant topic to talk about. So I'm gonna divide that into like a macro as well as like micro perspectives, which on the macro side, just adding some of AJ's points and why China actually can deal with problems so effectively, because it has always been stick to its original plan, which is called 5-year plan. I think everybody probably have heard about it if you pay attention to like China's news and also like what's happening here in China. So I will regard China's 5-year plan as planning a sustainable future, but with a reasonable planned targets and goals. So I'm not going to talk in detail about the 14th 5-year plan, but it covers a year from 2021 to 2025, and it has been divided into 19 sections and 65 chapters. So I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but as you can see that this plan is very specific and which can touch all aspects of economic and social development in both qualitative and quantitative criteria aspects over the next 5 years. So it basically touches the people's lives. It cares about how to improve the quality of life among people and how to improve the social well-beings. And I would like to highlight one thing from this 14th 5-year plan, which China has set a target of GDP growth rate for 2022 at 5.5%. So as everybody knows that it's never easy to achieve a goal like that, like with a specific number in your mind. So what China has done is that it has put one of the focuses on the economic growth in the development of the real economy, which includes the balanced development of the real estate, manufacturing industry, as well as like the real economy in general. And a lot of people tend to underestimate China's power in terms of the manufacturing industry, which it has actually maintained its position as the world's largest manufacturing hub for 11 straight years, which accounts for the nearly 30% of the global manufacturing output. So that's kind of like a large percentage has been occupied for the whole global manufacturing output. So when I talk about manufacturing, Chongqing has got a say. Because we are actually here in Chongqing, and we have such a quality development of the manufacturing industry, and we put that into a really high position. So I assume that none of people actually know that Chongqing covers the 39 of the 41 industrial categories here in China. 39 out of 41.
Staggering number.
With different application scenarios, including like automobile, electronics, equipment, as well as energy industries. So I don't even have to mention that Chongqing has built into like China's most important automobile production base, which covers a lot of like complete product series of passenger, business, and special vehicles. And it also always has this top production and sales volume for several consecutive years. So I would like to ask Alex, since you have been in Chongqing for a while, right?
Yes.
And also your team has, I know, visited some of like smart factories here. So what are some of the brands like for Chongqing's automobile brands you can think of in your mind right now?
Shanghai?
Yes.
And I would have to say that because I noticed the investment. If you're a business owner here, okay, if you're an Uber driver, give you an example, guys. Uber driver, America, right? You get it. Well, imagine a company that is designing vehicles just for that market. Imagine a company that is designing financing for vehicles just for that market. And I used to I take a taxi, or we'll call it a T3. Now, T3 is powered by those vehicles. And what's interesting is that branding and T3 are so integrated that you know what you're getting when you get into that vehicle. And there's another thing that Chongqing does very well too, is in the EV car space here, and I'm going to go continue to go on EV, because that's a really important part of the economy here. Is yes, they want to improve, the ecology around here, the blue skies. They actually have a yearly, they call it counter days on how many times you can actually see blue skies, and they want to continue to break those records. And they are looking at e-vehicles. Now, you might say Tesla's or GM's got some e-vehicles, but listen to this. There are incentives to have these vehicles here. Some shopping malls offer free parking. Some shopping malls offer free charging. There are charging destinations everywhere. Not just at your grandma's house or something like that, 60 kilometers away. There are charging everywhere. And as well as they have the infrastructure that if you can't get to that charge, you can actually hire somebody to come out, help you out, boost you, take you to that destination. That's the infrastructure. Where there's a problem to China, there is a solution. And that's just one example I wanted to share with you. Also, the bridges, for example, here, and the infrastructure, when it's either the subways or it's the monorails or it's, we call it the underground or whatever. There's a consistent amount of infrastructure investment going on here. It's unstoppable. Now, I see the people, they say, Alex, if you move and you live really downtown, you're going to be in traffic jams. If you want to see a traffic jam, head to Bangkok, Thailand. That's a traffic jam, 2 or 3 hours to get 3 kilometers. I think that sometimes the Chinese don't realize how good they got it when it comes to infrastructure.
I know. We have so many new lines coming up. And yes, and I'm really glad that Alex has mentioned about the EV, topic about EV. I have this latest statistics from the Chongqing Municipal Bureau of Statistics, actually. So electric vehicles have been spread to a lot of countries from Chongqing, like to South Korea, France, Turkey, Singapore, and some of the European countries, like Germany. So among them, actually over 2,000 electric cars were exported to those places and had an increase of over 900% yearly. And that's like a huge, as you can see, huge exporting of the new energy vehicles. And it's kind of becoming people's daily life now, considering about the really high oil price. A lot of youngsters, a lot of my friends actually have their own electric vehicles, and it works pretty well. Are you thinking about buying a new, perhaps a
vehicle?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that. Since moving to Asia, I lived in Southeast Asia before. I did come to Chongqing, and I believed in scooters or mopeds or whatever you call them. Here, I have an e-bike. And e-bikes, there's a revolution going on in e-bikes here. Not because of me driving them, but I got to tell you, my last year's bill to drive around my neighborhood on an e-bike, charging it from a local garage that charges it for me twice a month, was 15 RMB, which is just a little over $2 to power my bike.
Wow.
Not bad. Huh? Not bad. Over to you, AJ. What do you think of this stuff?
Yeah, so going back to your prediction that Chinese GDP would grow around 5.5% this year. But this prediction was made in the start of the year. And as you know, things always happen unexpectedly. For example, COVID, for example, the war in Ukraine, supply issues, oil prices. So there's a lot of outside factors. But what you have to really take in is how the Chinese economy fares compared to the rest of the world. So 5.5% is good, but if you compare, right now, average Chinese economy has grown about 3%, I would say, an average over the past 6 months, up and down. And by the end of the year, it probably might go to 4.5%. But if you look at the rest of the world, you got the United States economy, which is practically in recession right now. So their economy is going downwards. The UK economy is not growing, it's going downwards. The European economy is going downwards. So by the end of the year, even 4.5% is still better compared to the rest of the world. This just means that China would be 4.5% stronger than it was a year ago compared to the United States, compared to Europe, compared to UK. And the GDP numbers doesn't really count. What you have to look at is how it is compared to the other countries. So if China grew 4.5% and the rest of the world grew 10%, then that's an issue. Then that's obviously a problem. But if China's grown 4.5% and the rest of the world has grown zero, then that's a great number. The same thing happened during the pandemic when the rest of the world was pretty much contracting itself, their GDP was going down, and the China was one of the few countries that grew at the time. So again, while the rest of the world is not doing so well, China is still doing well. And you could also look at the GDP growth in terms of numbers. Last 10, 20 years or so, the GDP growth for China was mainly down to property, construction, and it's not like that anymore. So the GDP growth now is what you would call a real GDP growth based on
Mhm.
manufacturing, based on what you export, based on what you make. The last 10, 20 years were not real, and there has been probably millions of Chinese who have become very, very rich through properties last 10, 20 years ago, but it's not like that anymore. I mean, since what's happened to Evergrande, I think the Chinese economy now is growing at what you would call it's a good economy. It's value driven economy, manufacturing economy. So it's just good for China in general to base your economy on your manufacturing or on what you make. And I think these are good numbers. Even if it's 4.5%, it really wouldn't matter to China too much as long as they know they are growing in terms of their manufacturing, their exports are growing.
Mm-hmm.
The new technologies being born, new businesses are being born. So I don't think it matters too much about the numbers. I think what matters is how China is growing and how the manufacturing is doing, how the businesses are doing.
Well, I always say it's the calm before the storm, and I'm not talking about China in this case. I'm talking about a lot of these Western countries that have hit the button for printing money.
Yeah.
Now, it goes through a cycle. We know it goes into the system. There is no way that the S&P 500 should have been hitting highs. That's right, hitting highs on the S&P market, the Standard & Poor market. That's the top 500 U.S. companies by market cap. There's absolutely no reason in the last 36 to 48 months or even more why they should have been hitting highs in global pandemics. One reason why, a flush of trillions of dollars into the market. That money's flushing out of the market.
Yep.
We've seen some pretty dire numbers yesterday. Either was Spotify or Shopify, one of the leaders, laying off 10% of the staff. A lot of freezes of going on in certain sectors, especially in the the sector that Google's in. Microsoft missed their numbers yesterday. Google missed their numbers yesterday. We're starting to see governments being replaced. Mario Draghi's government up for re-election now. And of course, the polls are going to the United Kingdom. And here we had people charading, saying, yes, in the UK, we think it's better to go this route or that route. Pardon me, I didn't vote in that, but I can tell you one thing. Right now, there is one serious storm brewing in Europe, and they are in for a very interesting winter time here because natural gas. Did you see natural gas yesterday? It hit a peak. The last time natural gas hit that, 2008 financial crisis happened immediately.
Exactly.
So we're starting to see these numbers. The Fed is meeting again today in the United States. There is anticipation that they're going to move it up another 3 quarters. So let me get this straight, America. Job losses are happening. Property prices are kind of either still rising or we'll say flat for most part, but still expensive to get into the market. First-time buyers are getting into this market, and you're raising interest rates 0.75% going into the future. Wow. And the cost of fuel is going up. I see dark clouds ahead here unless there is another QE, quantitative easing, or a flood of money once again back into the U.S. market. But I am absolutely very concerned. And the last time, AJ, we saw this, they brought the Chinese to the table to hit the button to bail them out of this.
Exactly. not going to happen again. I'll tell you that now. Just to cover what you said, Alex, there's a term for everything that you've said, and it's called stagflation. And the West is hitting stagflation. Stagflation is basically means recession plus inflation at the same time. So when you have a lot of money in your in your distribution, when you have a lot of money in the country, it gets diluted, and obviously the inflation rises. As the inflation rises, the demand goes down because people have less money to buy stuff, and cost of prices go down in theory. But unfortunately, the cost of prices are going up. Demand is going down while the cost of price is going up, and this is what stagflation is. And this is a major problem. This is something that the West cannot fix overnight. And when a country has gone into stagflation, they will start to panic because you are in recession, you're not making any money, and your inflation is basically going through the roof. So what do? There's not much you can do, to be honest. And like you said, they will probably print more money. One of the things that the United States has got an advantage on is the US dollar is still the world's reserve currency. So one of the reasons why US dollar is very strong right now is because all the other currencies around the world are very weak because of obviously the recessions, cost of living, cost of inflation. So a lot of currencies around the world, like euros and the Indian rupee and many currencies, are going downwards. So what do these countries do? If their own currency goes down, they basically buy up US dollars to shore up their own currencies. So there's a lot of countries around the world buying up US dollars, and this is why the US dollar is so strong right now. At the moment, is currently on parity with the euro, and this is not good for the US dollar. By the way, first of all, their exports to other countries will be much more expensive. If you have a very strong dollar, your exports to other countries are going to be very expensive, meaning people are less likely to buy your goods. They're more likely to buy it from China or Asia or other countries, which is not good. So it might look like the US economy is doing well with the very strong dollar, but actually, it's all fake news. It's all false pretenses. The US dollar is only doing well because the rest of the world is doing so badly. They are just buying up US dollars because it's the world reserve currency, and this is why it's strong. And the Chinese yuan has actually grown as well. I think they're higher than the euro very recently, and they are moving up. But even though the Chinese yuan is very strong, obviously the exports are going to be more expensive. But if you compare the exports to exports coming out of the Western world, it's still a lot cheaper. So people have no choice but to still buy Chinese goods. So that's not going to change, you know. So I just wanted to kind of say that as well.
So before I move on to Vivian here, she's got a lot to say, and I know that. I just want to make it very clear here. I was a derivatives trader, still am a derivatives trader for my own funds, and have been for over 20-some years. There's something in the derivatives market called option trading, and in the option trading, you can buy out forecasted what the S&P market is, what the Dow Jones is going to be, what the NASDAQ. Now, a lot of people follow the Dow, and I'm not sure they're aware that the Dow Jones is only 30 companies in total. That's it, just 30 companies in the Dow Jones. And especially same with the German DAX, there's only 30 companies. But the Dow has been reaching heights of 34,000. It's good for headlines. But let me tell you something, what I've noticed in the option market, okay? Get ready for this here. In the option market, when you're writing options or derivatives, options on futures, they are paying you, the option market as of last night is paying you, get this, over a 40% return to guarantee this market doesn't drop another 25 to 30% for the end of the year. Dollar for dollar, that is what they're paying you in the derivatives option market. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Alex, the stock market's holding up. The real news, if you want to really follow the financial markets, is the real players, we'll call it, are in the derivatives and option market. That is a multi-trillion-dollar market. It makes the Dow Jones, the S&P look like, kindergarten when it comes to the kind of money. And we saw that last night. You should see the amount of contracts being traded on natural gas. Why? Maybe a couple of turbines need to be repaired on the gas line, the Nord Stream 1 in Germany from the Russian Nord line. Imagine that. Your economy survive on natural gas. Where are you going to buy it if it's not available? So the natural gas are flooding into the market. Now, the average person, they only notice these changes when they go to the pump. When they go to pump up their car, oh, I'm paying another $10. I don't know what happened. The action is taking place on the derivatives market. Last night, natural gas exploded to an all-time high. Last time we saw it, I told you guys that, 2008, and the world went into, well, as one of the viewers says, hellfire. We've got it up on the screen here. H. Crew says they're in an energy cap that will be removed in the UK in September 2022, and all hellfire will lead the UK to collapse. Get ready for the economic reset. Interesting, very interesting words. Vivian, is there good clouds?
I know.
Is there sunny clouds in this conversation?
There's like a lot of information I've been observing from you and AJ, and just talking about what's happening actually in the world and looking through all those different countries and what we were dealing with their economies. But I would like to highlight that what China has done in terms of like how to improve its economic growth. And because we were just talking about the real economy for previously, and there's actually really a great integration of digital technology and the real economy, which aims to power the transformation and upgrading of the traditional industries, as well as like pushing for the new development industry, kind of like new forms of business, new models of business, which definitely can be like new drivers of the economic growth. So compared with lots of countries that were dealing with their things, actually China has been pushing forward in terms of how to combine this digital economy as well as the real economy. The best example, because we were just, as I said, we were covering different things happening here in Chongqing, and as I mentioned, that the Smart China Expo, which will be displayed in a month. What actually Smart China Expo is the best example to show that there are some new technologies, new products, and new formats and applications, and which push for the technological innovation and business model here in China, and which will actually have a big impact on people's life. Basically, it will have profound changes to the people's production and life. Just only viewing and seeing those, using those new technologies and new products. And I have a really interesting story to share with you, Alex. There was one time that I got invited as a reporter to visit a place here in Chongqing, in the Chongqing's high-tech zone, actually, just right at the Western Chongqing Science City. It's called AI City. Mm-hmm. So AI City, from its name, that it's a pioneering area, actually, just for building a model for artificial intelligence, and also like a center embedded with a lot of high-tech experiences, exhibitions, and tests for the future city. So think about that. Like when you wake up in the morning, a lot of robots just like service you for the breakfast, and you only can click your phone actually for just calling a taxi or whatever. So it's like it's gonna be actually have this ultimate change to people's life, because technology actually can make people's life better. And this AI city actually, as we know that AI is inseparable with the data, right? Mm-hmm. So this AI city project is designed to be a data-driven intelligent body where 90% of the software and hardware generated data will be well collected, well analyzed, and managed. In order to have this, data, basically data generated by every node will become the driving force for this city. So they are actually creating this sample right now, which if they are having like manage the data and well collected data, they will probably put that into the real use.
So if I'm going to add in on that, and let me get this straight, if I've got mm-hmm. this understanding. So a lot of the cities that you see, especially where I was from in Canada, let's use Vancouver for an example. I always would see certain things never fixed or never repaired, or traffic jams at the same traffic lights. When you're talking about AI and when you're talking about maybe the city, could we be talking smart traffic lights? Smart, for example, let's say sensors in the road that will detect that there is an accident.
Yeah.
Emergency vehicles can be called. The lights, for example, traffic lights will send back a message saying, traffic light A17 section B is out.
It's like
to fix that.
Even like smart fire safety, right?
Yeah.
There's a fire protection. Like basically, from that area, I can say that there are a lot of big screens showing that some of the places have been monitored for the potential hazards for the fire production. So there are a lot of things that are happening, like also like smart cultural tourism, smart communities. Basically, these are all packed into digital layers ready to be deployed in upgrading the targeted industries. So those are like actual improvements.
Real numbers,
yes.
real data to work from. I mean, imagine that, AJ. If we knew how people's patterns were in the United Kingdom, how to take the proper train, the underground, to sync it in such a method that it could be, that data can be used to improve the system. Let me go into a little bit more detail, and I'm not sure if our audience is aware of this. And I'm going to bring it up on next week's show, because I've seen this sample, and I was told this from another friend, so I'm not going to vet this just yet. But what it is it's a database. For example, a citywide database. Imagine a municipality that had, let's say, 100 operators on the phone. Somebody would call up and say, oh, there's a lamp post that's down on street ABC. Somebody would phone and say, there's the drain is blocked on this part of the city. Somebody took down the baseball diamond. Okay, all this information is brought into these databases. Now, in our Western world, City Hall or whoever would take these complaints, they would either enter them into a computer or they would write them in paper. But imagine if you knew that there was a line that you could call and complain and results happened. You'd say, now that's interesting. Now, how do they do that? Using AI software. For example, all these communications come in, all these voice recordings come in, and let's say certain targets come, or the word traffic light ABC, traffic light ABC, traffic light ABC, and it pings into that database. And all of a sudden, in all these operators and all these people that have called in, that word or those words move up to the level. And that's how municipalities get things fixed. Now, that is what I'm hearing is where we're going with smart cities, to the point where it's using AI voice recognized complaints. Can you imagine that? To actually fix certain things that are broken down in your municipality or something like that.
And that's happening in Chongqing, so it's quite impressive. Like just seeing this whole project going on, and and having to say that there are more interactions between people and technology. I think that's pretty impressive. So I would like to know that how does AJ think about that in terms of like building a model of like futuristic city, in terms of like combining with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I'm actually quite an expert on AI. I work in the IT sector. Yeah, I think to make it simpler, just if I can say it in the most simplest way, to have the best AI, you need data. And how do you get that data? China has got a huge advantage over the rest of the world. You have 1.4 billion people in China, and if everybody has a mobile phone, everyone goes shopping, everyone buys online, that is somebody collecting data. They know what every person is doing. They know what someone's buying online. They know what they're browsing online, for example, on social media, for example. All of that is data, and data is so important, especially with AI. And this is why a lot of countries around the world are now getting very strict with data. They don't want any of that data to be going out to other countries. So they have very strict laws about having data centers within their own countries. Facebook is being threatened to be kicked out of Europe unless they have a data center in Europe, for example, because they know that having that kind of data is very, very important for AI. And to have an effective AI, you need data, and the more data you have, the better your AI becomes. And this is the advantage that China has. And I think all of these smart cities, all of it's doing is just building up data, building up AI. And 10 years ago, China was very, very far behind when it comes to AI. America was obviously leading the way, but now, China has made so many inroads in the AI sector, and they're making so many advances as well. And then you have AI playing with 5G, and you know people don't understand the importance of 5G as well. When you run a business and you have very slow network, you're having to move data across from server to server, database to database, and that requires bandwidth. And if you don't have fast enough bandwidth, you're going to have to wait. And in UK, we have companies who run jobs overnight, ETL jobs, or they have to transfer data to another center. And that takes time. And if you don't have fast networks, if you don't have 5G, you're going to have to wait. And time is money, end of the day. The longer these processes take, the more money you lose. But with China's 5G, you have all of this data being transferred all across the country, super fast. And obviously 6G is coming out as well. They have a huge, huge advantage. And China is also the world leader when it comes to big data as well. So when you have China becoming the world leader in big data, world leader in 5G, world leader in AI, and plus you got the biggest population in the world, barring India as well, you are just going to be winning. And they say in UK we don't even have 5G as well. Since they kicked out Huawei, UK is going to be about 10 years behind. We don't
Well,
have.
aren't they tearing out the systems there too?
Yeah,
What's
they're still.
interesting is they're
Yeah, they
tearing
are.
out the 5G, but they still got 3G and 4G Huawei in there.
That's
What's the
right. Yeah,
difference?
they're still tearing up the 5G. They're still spending billions to tear up the 5G. They don't have anything to replace it. They do have 5G systems, but they're not true 5G. They call it 5G. It's like buying a fake Armani suit. It says Armani on this. It says Armani, but it's not really Armani. So
I like
that's
it.
what it is. Yeah, it's not
4G
really.
plus.
Yeah, it's
4G
4G
plus.
plus. Exactly, it's 4G plus. It doesn't
Upgrading
give you the
4G.
yeah, it doesn't give you the speeds that true 5G do or Huawei does. It's just they say it's 5G, but people are stupid in UK. People don't know the difference. The people they're not going to complain. If you go to China and you realize how fast the 5G speeds are, then you come to UK, then you realize, oh my God, we've been fooled here. So I think UK and especially United States is still about 10 years behind when it comes to 5G. But 5G opens up so many doors as well. It opens up things like metaverse. You need 5G for metaverse. You need 5G for so many things like artificial intelligence also, but also driving as well, autonomous driving with EV cars. You could have flying taxis, and to have flying taxis you need very good speed. You need 5G. So imagine if you're doing a flying taxi with 3G speeds, that taxi would fall out the sky within minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
The
the advantage that China has. Plus, a lot of people don't really talk about Chinese infrastructure. They got high voltic lines that they are building, and these are huge lines. Sending electricity and data across all of China. Obviously you have the renewables mainly down in Xinjiang or mainly down in the northern side of China, but that energy has to be transferred to the rest of China. So China is building a huge infrastructure of high voltage lines as well, and most of the other countries don't have that. And it's very, very important to have that infrastructure. You have the high voltage lines, you have 5G, you have obviously AI, you have all of these things put together. It gives China a huge advantage as well. And a lot of people probably don't really study enough about China to realize what advantage China has. And especially when it comes to EVs, you have a huge infrastructure for EVs. You have obviously you have the Tesla chargers, but all the other chargers are universal. China has made all the other car chargers universals, and it's amazing because you can drive a Neo or a BYD and use the same charger, and it's great. And they have chargers everywhere. They have a great infrastructure. You don't have to worry about driving your car and running out of energy and you're going to be stuck. They have energy points everywhere. They have battery changing stations. But in UK, you don't have that. You don't have as many charging points. And in UK, different cars have different charging points. Like you have one for Tesla. If you're driving a different car, you've got to find a different car charger. The
But how do
infrastructure
you
is not
manage
there.
that? Like, if the charger is different, like how do you say if you are going out with your EV car, like how did you manage to find like the right one? Like,
Well,
you have to,
each Tesla will have an app saying where you can
Yeah.
charge your Tesla.
right.
you have an
Yeah.
app, but you don't have
Okay.
many charging points. And the
So
problem
you
with
have to
UK
search that for yourself by.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But
Okay.
Yeah. Feast or famine, we call it.
yeah, the problem in UK and problem in the United States is you have these apps and you find these car charging points, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to find that they do not work. They do not work
God.
because they have problems like electrical issues, or sometimes they do not work because they've been vandalized. The car charging things are very, very good for robbers. What they do, they cut off the car chargers and they sell it on the black market. And these are very, very expensive things. And they can you can buy these in the black market for about £2,000. So what a lot of people are doing, they're vandalizing them. They're taking the charging wire and they're taking the parts and they're selling it because, as you know, with all of these economic issues happening, the West is having, people are finding ways to make money, and this is one way to make money. So some of my friends do have electric cars, and they are telling me what a nightmare it is to drive. And 90% of them actually have gone back to driving gas cars because electric cars are so bad. They can't find chargers anywhere, and the charging points are very slow in UK. We have what you would call level 1, level 2 charging points, which means you have to wait 8-9 hours to charge your car. And if you're living in an apartment, then you're stuck because you're gonna have to find a charging point and wait about 8-9 hours. You can't leave it overnight. You have to wait 8-9 hours, and it's
So
such
inconvenient.
it's such a big inconvenience. And as you know, most people in UK live in London, and most people live in flats. So it's very not practical at all. Like I said, 90% of my friends have gone back to gas cars because they just can't handle electric
Incredible.
cars. And that's sorry, go on.
So I just wanted to say good morning to a few people. Our audience bumped up here as we headed across the 7 o'clock part of the program today. So it looks like 7 o'clock is a nice time, I guess, to maybe start our future live streams if we can. That's not a problem. We enjoy anyone that comes to our program at any time. I'm just reading some of the comments on our sidebar here. Some of the people said that there's a few people that should be moderated. Don't worry, we've addressed that problem already. Done. Another thing that I wanted to point out here is when you're talking about the 5G market, it's not just about speed of internet. It's not just about, communications of making cars or things work differently. Let's look at it 2 ways here. One, medical science. Operations can be done remotely. For example, electronics. I mean, these are so precise. You need that speed. Constructions. Imagine that. Construction sites, diggers being done remotely in the office. Thousands of miles away, communicating with a AI driver. These are jobs that, of course, people might say, hey, the construction industry, it could be replaced. Bricklayers, stuff like that, that can be done by robotics. So that robotics, that communication, people are really missing the point here. They think it's just, hey, I can surf YouTube and it'll be better. Maybe I can watch 4K instead of 1080. Oh, no problem. But it's other fundamentals. And that's where China really puts its money down. It puts it down on the infrastructure. We had some comments from somebody here earlier who's from Melbourne talking about the potholes, the old systems, the old trains. I mean, not just that, safety on these networks. You got to remember when these items and these devices on these trains are not properly maintained, you have problems later. Same with bridges. I mean, you know, we were talking about the what was it, AJ? The we re-nicknamed it the big what was it? Joe Biden's government called it the big.
Yeah.
What do
The
they
big
call it?
bankrupt.
It's the BBB program. Anyway,
Build
we
Back
nicknamed it.
Better.
Yeah, Build Back
Bankrupt.
Bankrupt, we call it. Vivian, I'm looking over at some of your notes. I'm eavesdropping on your notes. What do we got here? Tell me what you tell us.
So
What you
because
say.
you guys are talking about 5G and
Yes.
and all those like high tech applications that have been integrated to people's life, I'm always like, you know, like having this comparison like
Mhm.
between like countries across the world and also like China. I think there's like definitely a big comparison, and even for myself, because I used to study in Canada for like several years, and you know, like my nightmare would be like waiting for a bus for like half an hour, and then you know you will get that, right? Like nobody, like there's no bus actually.
There's no bus coming.
No bus coming in for 30 minutes. But like right now we can even like check from our phone. Like we can say what how long we'll be waiting for like the next bus coming, and even for the subways as well. So just having this convenience actually can you know, like make your life just easier, you know.
Mhm.
So when we are talking about the like how high tech can change people's life, I'm gonna highlight on the like the basically the consumption scenarios here in Chongqing.
So
And
for the Western audience,
Mhm.
consumption. What does it mean for the Western audience?
basically to presume like you're going to buy stuff.
Because
um,
we've had this conversation, and not just with you, even in the this office. Everybody's saying
Consume
consumption.
things, basically.
We say consumer,
You
spend
consume
money.
basically just spending money, and in different scenarios. And as Alex, now you have been using the WeChat and
Yes, of
also
course.
for the Alipay and all
Yes.
those kind of things.
Yeah.
So convenient. You
Very
don't even have
convenient.
to bring a credit card right now to, you know, like to buy things. Just using one phone would be
Let's
good enough.
stay on this point, because I think AJ also wants to add on this. Imagine a country goes to this. Now, I've been here a year now.
Mhm.
I've seen money maybe twice in like cash registers giving money to someone.
That's true.
Besides that, I haven't seen cash. Now, you take cash out of the system, you have an easier way of taking money laundering out of the system. You have an easier way of taking a black market out of the system.
Mhm.
Now, to some other nations, people might disagree with that,
Mhm.
depending on what business you're in. And other people might say, well, does that really benefit society, taking those elements out? I think there is a staggering amount of money that has come back into the economy because of going that electronic way.
Mhm.
And I mean, can you imagine? Well, I should say, can you imagine? You're in countries that you visit bank machines. You take the cars to get the bank machines, or let's say you park the car, you get a ticket because you need to take money out of the machine, or you're not there, you need to put it on your credit card. It's this whirlwind of trying to pay for cash. This is pretty much what we leave the house with,
Mhm.
and we make sure that it's charged.
Of course.
But taking that out of you know, the Western economies and seeing how the West, when we mean payments that can be done wirelessly and so efficient, it's so hard. I can't even really explain it to people.
I know.
It's hard to explain.
It's so fast, basically. Like it basically just save your time and energy, and just, you know, make you live in a happy way, instead of worrying about how many cash I'm going to bring today, and you know, like, you know, counting on your credit cards and loans and etc. So I think it actually changes people's life. And when since we are talking about the consumption, right? Because we were saying that consumption is like a way for people basically to consume things, like basically to spend money with. we have a really interesting figure I would like to share that just from the WCFAT, which
Yes.
just passed. Chongqing actually ranks third in the 2022 Forbes China Consumption Mentality City list, just right after Beijing and Shanghai. So this can actually show that with these all new consumption scenarios and trends going on, Chongqing is actually full of opportunities, and it has like nightlife economies. It has first story economies. Basically perform really well in the consumer sector. So
Well, let's talk about this nightlife, because
Yeah.
this is an interesting topic here, and I have a video coming out, and I know you've done a great video.
I know.
Interviewing a few or one bar owner at least, right?
we actually have interviewed four bar owners.
owners,
We
okay.
talked to one bartender actually, and
Yeah.
and he's from Philippines. So we basically gathered his ideas about how he feels about Chongqing, and those things are doing like flair things.
Yeah.
Are really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can play that probably in a minute. Talking about the nightlife here, economy here in Chongqing, which like there are a lot of things to do in the night in Chongqing. Like not only about plenty of bars, dancing clubs, your favorite karaoke place, and some of like street barbecues and other snacks
Yeah.
along during the night.
You know what I want to add to this, Vivian? It's just not for the young kids. You're thinking nightlife. You're thinking 18 college students ripping up the streets. The nightlife here is designed in many different ways. Families actually go out to certain areas and certain streets here because there are events. If you like singing, there's a platform for you in the middle of the street to sing to anybody that you want to. And of course, there's a crowd there that supports you. And some people put their WeChat code out there for a donation. But there are many things, whether it's KTV, whether it's brew pubs, whether it's themed bars, whether it's clubs, whether it's pubs, whether
There are
it's,
night tours, like
Yes.
in Chongqing specifically, because we are here. We can actually see the two rivers, including Yangtze River
Yes.
as well as Jialing River. So like really amazing, breathtaking, like beautiful night views here in Chongqing. Just having this exclusive night tour here in Chongqing is amazing experience, I would say.
Yeah, I just want to add to that because I had a good nightlife in Chongqing. Sorry. I just wanted to say that I lived in Chongqing for a while as well, and 10 years when I was there about 10 years ago, I was quite young then, and I used to meet a lot of people at night. I used to go to the local bars, local clubs, and a lot of the Chinese people I used to meet, they used to tell me that Chongqing is very famous for having the most beautiful girls in China. And
Right.
I have to say, I completely agree. And then I realized a lot of Chinese travel from all over China. They travel from Beijing, they travel from Shanghai. They come to Chongqing just for the ladies, and it's actually true. I mean, a lot of Chinese people I speak to, they say that Chongqing nightlife is probably the best, better than Shanghai, better than Beijing, and they all travel all the way to. And especially now with the transport links that have improved to Chongqing, I think a lot of people from all over China are just coming to Chongqing just for the nightlife. And I'm sure it's changed since I was there, but when I was there, it was amazing.
Yeah, and I think it's really mature too. Like there's something that really hasn't come here yet, and I'll tell you what that is. Of course, craft beer bars here, lots of them. The beer bar craze is here. The cafes, no problem. The dance clubs, no problem. But the wine drinking has not penetrated Chongqing yet. And what I mean by that is a majority of the restaurants that you go to, a majority of the bars that you go to, they'll sell you a bottle, but it's very seldom that you'll be able to order wine by glass in this city.
Yes.
It's very complicated. And can you imagine that? If you're a wine seller, this is a huge market, over 30 million people in this city. And this in Southwest China, I mean, it's into the hundreds of millions. But imagine that market still hasn't matured yet. So that just shows you the potential in the consumption sectors. Yeah, pretty big stuff. What else have you got for us, Vivian?
Are we going to show the video yet, or are we?
I think we're going to show that on, because I'm having a little bit of, I was trying to show AJ stuff, and I can't seem to get that on the screen. So We're going to show that in our next event. How about that?
Sure,
You
sounds
cool with
good.
that?
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
go
cool.
with
I'm
that.
cool.
So, AJ, I know we're on a little bit of a deadline for you. How much time have you got left, AJ?
I've got still got another half an hour. I can stay.
Can we dive into a little bit of last night's debate, or was it the
Yeah,
night before?
yeah. Last night.
It seems to be that the two leading people have decided to put on the anti-China cap yesterday and tried
Yeah,
to outdo each other. Who do you think
yeah.
won?
I made a video about this yesterday. Actually, it's on my channel. So it was quite hilarious. I actually watched it live, and it was quite funny. And it was the debate was so bad that one of the reporters fainted in the middle of
Oh,
Liz Truss's chat. So here was Liz Truss talking about China, talking about Russia, and some reporter fainted, and Liz Truss looked like maybe there was a bomb that hit the building, because her face was just shook. She was scared out of her wits. So it's quite funny to see that. But I think, yeah. So obviously with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss has been very, very vocal in her anti-Chinese comments. She's over the past few months, she's been very hawkish towards China. She's been talking about how the world needs to rise up against China. She's talking about arming Taiwan. She's talking about Taiwan independence. She's saying all the right things to kind of please all the neocons in the United States, to please the CIA, the FBI. So she obviously is not saying it for the UK people. She's saying it obviously for these hawks in the United States. So she has been leading the race over the past few months, because even though she's a failure in every single position she has been. She's failed as a foreign secretary. She's failed as a trade secretary. She's failed in every single position, and yet she's going to be the next prime minister, because she's been saying all the right things. And as you know, Britain is very much puppet states of the United States. So whatever the United States say, Britain pretty much follows. So if they like her, they will say, make her the next PM. We don't care. Just make her the next PM, and they'll probably do it.
wow.
So she has been leading the charge in her anti-Chinese comments, and Rishi Sunak has been very vocal about working with China. He's been very vocal about, we need China to kind of for trade. China's our biggest trade partner. So obviously Rishi Sunak was the chancellor, so he's looking at the business side of things. So he's not been saying
Mhm.
anything bad about China. Then all of a sudden yesterday, I don't know if somebody tapped him on his shoulder or said, you know what, you're going to lose this race as a prime minister. You're going to have to bash China. So he started coming out the races, and he starts talking about kicking out all of these Chinese schools, kicking out the Chinese from UK. He's gonna do this. He's gonna, China is the biggest threat. And and I said in my video, if I put Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss in front of me, and I sat in front of them, and I asked them one question: why do you think China is the biggest threat to UK? None of them will be able to answer it. They will be thinking about it, thinking, "Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. Why is China a big threat?" Because they can't answer it. Here they are, like, saying all of these anti-Chinese rhetoric, and I'm just really disappointed with Rishi Sunak, because before he hasn't
Yeah.
he hasn't said one bad thing about China, and yesterday he knew he was losing the race, and he thought by bashing China he'd go straight to the top of the race. But it's really is a sellout, to be honest. It's almost like you're selling your own grandmother to win, basically. And it's quite shameful to watch him becoming like that. And I just think, when are we going to have a prime minister who's got some balls and just to say the truth, rather than spouting out all sorts of nonsense? I'm just really, really disappointed with the people we have running prime minister. The
Yeah.
West likes to talk about Xi Jinping, that Xi Jinping wasn't voted, he was
Yeah.
picked. And people don't understand the Chinese government, how it works. And Xi Jinping has been, basically a success in everything he's done throughout his life, and he's been promoted, after every single success, and eventually he worked his way up to the top. He's been, he's the right candidate to lead the country. But then if you look at UK and you look at Liz Truss, what has she done to deserve to be Prime Minister? Nothing. She's been failing in everything. She hasn't got a clue what's going on. She doesn't have a clue about foreign policy. She and she will be probably the next Prime Minister without deserving to be Prime Minister. And again, people that compare her to Margaret Thatcher, they really don't know what they're talking about. And I just think
Yeah.
Boris was pretty bad, but I think Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, they're just worse than Boris, to be honest.
If I'm going to add to this point is that if you look at a lot of the countries that have come out and developed in the last, let's say, 20 years, every single one of them are developed countries because of China. They've succeeded because of China. They've succeeded because of China's investment, China's infrastructure, China's strategy, continually over and over and over. As these domino countries start to fall over and say, wait a minute, and start to question the U.S., the U.S.'s strategy on this. And start to say, wait a moment here. Our countries had infrastructure investment. Our trade is improving. Our lives are improving. Our life expectancy is actually growing at a faster rate than America's, which is declining due to their COVID policies. And you have to really take a serious look at that now and say, wait a moment. In all these other Western countries, to be the top of the political ladder, you don't need friends. You need money, billions of dollars to do it. To be elected in the United States, even for a congressional seat, you need millions of dollars. How many favors are the senators doing to get that money to help their campaign fund go? You look at Bloomberg. He spent billions. He still didn't get in there, okay? And it's a colossal amount, and it's a bad game when you think about it. Half the country's divided. Then they elect another guy. Then they're divided again. Then another laws become changed. Then they're divided again. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And this, I guess, breakdown of the system, there's a massive division. And all eyes are turning to China, and people are saying, wait a minute. This economy is doing okay through a tough time. They're still expanding. Like if I showed the audience these headlines in the West, if I replace these headlines with America, let me read these to you. They're for China, but let me read them to you for America. Okay, let's go. America's GDP rises 2.5% year over year. Good news for America's economy. I should be saying China because they're all saying China. Overseas investors find sweet spots in America's green transition. Digital service productions flourish across America. America keeps contributing to the world economic growth. Now, all these say China, but I've just replaced it with America. They would love those headlines. They can't have those headlines because they have elected people. Unfortunately, that's the system that is there. And has it improved lives? If my mother lived in China, for example, and let's say she lived 400 kilometers away in Chengdu. For me to meet her halfway, 30 minutes. Or take an hour, high-speed rail train, have coffee with my mom, maybe at Luckin Coffee. Hi, Mom, how are you doing? I come home. Now in Canada, my choices are flight. Do I want my 80-year-old mother to drive 3 or 4 hours? In the summer, it might be okay. If it doesn't rain. In the wintertime, never. On a broken down system that doesn't work, there is no passenger rail in Canada except for overly priced tourism package kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you take the plane away, and these are countries that are trying to make a big deal about the environment, but they're giving the only option to get on an airplane. Anyway, seeing these headlines in China here, we see these every day. I had my team gather them together to kind of talk about them on the show, but we're going to wrap this show up here now. I'm going to go to Vivian for her last words, then to AJ, and I'm going to have a special goodbye to us, and we'll go with you, Vivian. Tell us what you need.
So I'm really glad that Alex has mentioned about there are so many countries in the world actually has to rely on China in order to be succeed. Interesting news, Galleries Lafayette with a history of more than 100 over 100 years, actually. They are bringing consumers high quality and diversified shopping choices here in Chongqing, which will be at the site of the first store here in the southwestern China. So I think there is a thing, right? They are definitely like aiming for Chongqing because there is like a potential market for some of like local consumers to actually consume things, basically to spend money with.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly the really good proof to basically to defend on Alex's argument on like how this could actually make a difference. And yeah, and all coming from this first store economy, which actually those world brands to bring their open their stores in the area in Chongqing for the first time, and to have this brand value and regional sources in order to trigger their regional economy. So I think like there are so many things we can talk this for ages, like about the first store economy and also like also about the nightlife economy. So yeah, it's really interesting, and we promise that next time we will show out that video.
Yes, of course.
For like because we got a really interesting interviewees talking about their angles of how Chongqing means to them and some of their nightlife activities. So back to you, Alex.
Okay, so we're going to carry on with AJ, and I just want to make a couple more points here before we really wrap up this show tonight. I walk in some of the new shopping malls here. Now, Chongqing is scheduled to get 60 new malls here in the next year. Just behind us here outside of our wonderful office, just across the street there, 3 mega malls opened up. And what did I see in these mega malls? I saw Western brands. So what is it? Western companies, European brands, come and sell. They want in the 1.5 billion people market here. They're selling their goods. They're selling their services. They're selling their products. What is the problem then? Why this anti-China, anti-rhetoric, don't buy from China, but then it's okay to have a Starbucks, a Pizza Hut, a Nike store, Under Armour store across the street here. And actually, some of these markets here in China are helping the bottom line on some of these revenue projections that are coming out here in the S&P market especially. Now, I've always said the world economy is not open until China's open. We still have 1.5 billion people that are dealing the best way they can and with the best strategy, I think, of over 190 nations in this world who've had it let it rip mentality not be very successful. And remember, there is a lot of long-term damage to long COVID. Now, AJ, before I pass the mic over to you today, I just wanted to let the audience know that I conducted an interview here today with a very famous professor here in China, and as well, a guest joined me in the office, and his name was Daniel Dumbrill, who joined me in the office today for an interview. AJ, I did speak to Daniel about having a little bit of a collaboration and bringing you onto the show at the later date, and he smiled and said, actually, very good idea. And so I look forward to that into the future. I'm going to pass it over to you, AJ, and then once you're done, we'll say our goodbyes and we'll thank this wonderful audience for joining us. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, very good news about Daniel Dumbrill, actually. I think a lot of viewers are probably wondering where he's gone. He's kind of disappeared off the radar, but it'll be nice to see him again, I'm sure. It'll be good to see him, and I'm sure a lot of viewers will be absolutely delighted to hear from him again. So yeah, I just want to finish off the fact that the FDI, the foreign direct investment in China, it has been growing year on year, every single year. And even though with all of these COVID issues, these fake news about companies leaving, people leaving, the FDI has actually been increasing because it just makes sense because you have 1.4, 1.5 billion people living in China. You have a huge market. And I'll give you an example. When it comes to EV cars, for example, to build an EV car, you need a lot of materials. You need obviously lithium, you need cobalt, you need a lot of stuff to build the batteries, to build the cars. You need to have cheap labor, cheap manufacturing goods. And where else in the world except China can you do that? And this is why all of the major car brands, we're talking about European car brands like BMW, Mercedes, Audi, they've all moved their factories in China. Tesla is building a second factory as well in near Shanghai. So they're going to have two gigafactories. And this is why China's market is huge. They have the infrastructure, they have the access to all these raw materials like lithium, like cobalt, like sodium, many other things that you need for to build a battery. And you can't have it in Europe because Europe doesn't have any lithium mines. They don't have any access to lithium mines. So Europe has got no EV manufacturing prowess, or they cannot have any factories there to produce EV cars. The costs are too expensive. If they want to get materials, they have to get it from China. Obviously, when you get it from China, you got to ship it all the way from China. You got to add all of that costs to the price, and they just can't afford to do that. And especially with the higher gas and oil prices, so it just makes sense to build everything in China. And especially that China's now going through a very good green transition as well. And
Mhm.
solar power, wind power generation is some of the highest. Plus, this year they've already said that they're going to invest, billions and billions, hundreds of billions more in solar farms and wind farms, hydroelectric power, plus
Mhm.
nuclear energy as well. So China would become very soon, it's going to be the factory of the world, and it's also going to be the least polluting country in the world as well. So it just makes sense to have all of this green energy. I mean, right now they're still going through a transition, and it's going to be until 2030, 2040. They're going to be carbon neutral by about 2060. But I think they're probably going to hit that figure much earlier because of the speed of all of these renewables coming online. So they're going to be the factory of the world. They're going to be running all sorts of green energy, nuclear energy, hydropower energy, and China is just going to get stronger and stronger. And all of these, if you're a business owner, it just makes sense to go to China and open a business there because you have access to all of these, you know, cheap labor, you have cheap goods, inflation is low, access to all of these raw materials, access to all sorts of infrastructure, 5G, AI. It just makes sense. And this is why the foreign direct investment in China has been growing year on year. And it's going to carry on growing. I mean, you just have to look at Chinese economy, how it's growing compared to the rest of the world. While United States is in stagnation, so is
Mm.
Europe, so is Britain. So it just doesn't make sense to open up businesses there. It just makes sense to open up in growing economies. And other growing economies obviously is in Asia as well, and there's obviously India as well. But China has still got advantage over them because of its infrastructure, because of its supply chains, because of the BRI, for example. It's just China has so many advantage. So it's just going to China's going to go from strength to strength. And all of these stories you hear in the West that China's going to collapse, China's going to fail, China's going to fall, the economy's not doing well. It's just the West basically. They love telling these stories because it makes them feel good. Because if they
Yeah, of
make a
course.
yeah, if it's a negative story about China, it makes them feel good, even though their own lives are really bad. They can't afford to, pay the rent. They can't afford to pay the gas
Well, we should
bills.
laugh. It's quite
I
serious. I
know.
mean, you're
Yeah.
quite.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just. I was getting caught up in the moment of these headlines, seeing these headlines, and then you quickly switch to people's lives. I mean, you're
I
right. I
know.
mean, it's detrimental with what
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
going on in
It's
people's
like
lives. I mean, it's
if you're having a really really bad life, and what makes you happy. Sometimes some people just tend up lashing out to others, and they
yes,
start saying, "Oh, China bad, China bad." It just makes them feel good. So all of these reporters, all of these politicians saying China bad, it just makes them feel good, even though that
yeah,
their own lives are so bad. Like for example, I was talking about Rishi Sunak and Liz. None of them talked about the economy. None of them talked about how they can improve British lives, how they can improve the inflation. All they were doing is bashing China. China bad, China bad.
it's
It's just
incredible.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And somebody made a comment earlier saying that, September, October time,
Yes,
the limits
it's
are going to
coming.
be, yeah, and it's true. Already the gas prices have gone double, even triple in some certain areas. And once that limit goes, then you will see riots on the streets, literally riots on the
Mm.
streets.
Well, AJ,
Uh,
always a pleasure. Do you want to add something? just cut you off there. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to finally say that you mentioned that the gas prices have gone really, really high yesterday. The reason for that is, there's gas going in through Nord Stream 1, and it's only 20% capacity at the moment because they need more parts, which they have to get it from Canada. It has to go via Germany, and it's only 20% capacity. So they are not getting the gas that they needed, and because of that, the gas prices have just shot up. And it's one of those things they've kind of shot themselves in the foot in. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say for now, guys. So over back to you.
So I just want to say to a couple of people, Tammy, yes, she has arrived. You asked that question. She's arrived about 2 weeks ago. Now, I'm just going to show you, viewers, this photo here. And if you guys can see who's in this photo, and tell me who you think. Oh, is it blurry? But I can't really do it. It's too close to the camera. Well, anyway, Daniel Dumbrill is there, and I'm there. And the third person is a very, very smart professor that came in to do an interview with us today. I can't give too much away. It'll be on our channel, the iChongqing channel here, and Daniel Dumbrill's channel here in the next couple of days. I just want to say to all the viewers, everyone that's joined us through our new connection on WeChat, thank you for joining the audience today. We greatly appreciate that. We've watched all your comments here. AJ's 2 channels, don't forget to subscribe to both of them. Maybe some of the people in the side can drop links to his channels. We're here at iChongqing. This is the wonderful Vivian. And next week, I will try to come up with another interesting topic. And of course, we will probably have a couple more surprises in regards to a few more guys and girls that I can get on my contact list, because a lot of us YouTube content creators stick together because either we're part of a hit piece by the mainstream media, they would like to silence us. Some of them have deplatformed some of us. Some of them have demonetized us, or they've done everything. And as you know, with me and my channel, I don't do it for the monetization. I do it for the passion of this country of over 1.5 billion people. On a daily basis, I wake up in China and I thank my lucky stars that I'm actually in a country that I really want to be in. Thank you, AJ. And from all of us here in the studio of iChongqing, and AJ, don't forget to stay back behind the stage so we can do a proper goodbye. And to all those people, we'll see you guys in the comment section. We really appreciate your night, spending your daytime or nighttime with us. Vivian, any last words?
Just please stay tuned with iChongqing's channel, including our different social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also pay attention to some of the stories we've been covering, because we only, like for the live stream, I got some chances actually to talk about the stories we've talked about, but like there are tons of other stories. And if you want to know, say, Chongqing's policies on, in like foreign companies, like things like that, please take a look with our iChongqing's pages and also like some of our articles. So,
and if you enjoy live streams, our channels have other live streams. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Aiko. She's done some great live streams here, and she continues to have some more exciting live streams coming up. So watch out for our channel here, especially on the YouTube and especially on Facebook. And of course, our community post, we will post our various live streams coming up, but all types of sectors we've done live streams. I think a few days ago, Aiko and Nick did from the WCI FIT, so you guys should check that out as well. But from all of us here, and AJ, stay back behind the stage. Don't go so fast. We know you got to go, because I got some questions I want to ask you about the UK government. But anyway, you guys have a great night. Take care. Thanks for watching.